Chapter 25. The Heart of Apartment 304. The truth tax period was finally over. The Malibu Bistro had found a new sous chef, and Janet's shop had settled back into its comfortable, local rhythm. They were back on the balcony. The Santa Monica moon was full, reflecting off the ocean in a way that made the whole world feel silver and still. Chrissy was inside, practicing her detective skills by trying to figure out where she'd hidden her own shoes. "Are you sorry?" Janet asked, leaning her head on Jack's shoulder. "About Malibu? The money? The glory?" "The glory was loud," Jack said, pulling her closer. "The money was heavy. But this is quiet. And quiet is what I've been looking for since the day I dived under that table at the French restaurant." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, simple box. It wasn't from Kruger's of Beverly Hills. It was from a local craftsman near the promenade. "Janet Wood," Jack whispered. "I've been your roommate, your sister, your Swiss chef, and your secret agent. But I'd really like to just be your husband. No more lies, no more disguises." Janet looked at the ring, then at the man who had sold a landlord's bed just to pay the rent. She didn't need to check the vibrations. She didn't need a Romanian protocol. "Yes, Jack," she smiled, her eyes brimming with tears. "But under one condition. Anything. No Yum Yum song at the wedding." Jack laughed, the sound echoing out over the Pacific. "Deal." As they stood there, the door to the balcony creaked open. Chrissy poked her head out, wearing one sneaker and one high heel. "Hey, roommates, I found one shoe. Do you think we could celebrate with some of those leftover eggs? I'm feeling very festive." Jack and Janet looked at each other, then at their chaotic, wonderful third wheel. "Come on, Chrissy," Jack said, holding out his hand. "Let's go make some eggs." Because in the end, 3 wasn't just a crowd. It was the only place they ever wanted to be. Chapter 26. Larry's Help and the Ascot Affair. Planning a wedding was supposed to be a romantic endeavor, but in apartment 304, it was more like navigating a minefield of polyester and bad advice. The morning after the proposal, Larry Dallas practically kicked the door down, clutching a stack of flyers for a used car extravaganza and matrimonial tent sale. "Jack, buddy, I've got the whole thing planned," Larry shouted, spreading the flyers across the coffee table. "We hold the ceremony at the lot. I've got 25 slightly pre-owned sedans we can use as an aisle. Plus, my boss says if we mention the 2-4-month financing in the vows, he'll throw in the catering for free." "Larry, we are not getting married between a Toyota and a Ford with a leaky transmission." Jack groaned, rubbing his temples. "Think of the optics, kid. The just married sign on a luxury sedan that has a bit of a salvage title, but nobody has to know." Janet walked in, holding a bridal magazine and looking like she was ready to use it as a weapon. "Larry, if you mention the car lot one more time, I'm going to personally ensure your next tuxedo is made of cactus." Suddenly, a rhythmic tapping came from the door. It was Mr. Furley, wearing a leisure suit that looked like a bowl of lime sherbet. "I heard talk of nuptials," Furley boomed, adjusting an ascot that was dangerously bright. "And as your official landlord and truth tax collector, I feel it is my duty to offer my services as the master of ceremonies. I have a very moving poem about the structural integrity of love and plumbing." Chrissy popped her head out of the kitchen. "Ooh, can I be the flower girl? Or a bridesmaid? Or the person who catches the cake?" "You catch the bouquet, Chrissy. You eat the cake," Janet said gently. "Right. I knew there was a catch somewhere." Chapter 27. The Mystery Guest of the Tripper Family. As the wedding preparations reached a fever pitch, a mysterious telegram arrived for Jack. It was from his uncle Leo, a man who had spent the last 20 years traveling the world as a professional badminton coach for European royalty, or so he claimed. "He's coming here, Janet," Jack said, staring at the paper. "Furley keeps talking about are going to turn into a seismic event. We just have to keep them separate, Jack," Janet said, though her voice lacked conviction. The trouble started when Uncle Leo arrived 2 weeks early. He stood in the living room, wearing a monocle and a cape that appeared to be made of recycled theater curtains. "Jackson," My boy, Leo cried, embracing Jack. I see you've finally settled down with. Which one is the bride? The florist with the fiery eyes or the blonde who is currently trying to eat a rubber bands? I'm the florist, Uncle Leo, Janet said, extending a hand. Magnificent. And who is the colorful gargoyle in the hallway? Leo asked, gesturing toward Mr. Furley, who was eavesdropping behind the door. Furley burst in, offended. Gargoyle? I'll have you know this suit is the height of Santa Monica sophistication, and I am the landlord. Leo squinted. A landlord. In my day, we treated landlords like pesky gnats. Tell me, do you have any champagne? I've just traveled across the Atlantic on a raft made of cork and ambition. Chapter 28. Pre-wedding jitters at the Regal Beagle. The night before the big day, the gang gathered at the Regal Beagle for one last drink as a group of single roommates. The air was thick with smoke, cheap beer, and a sense of impending change. Jack was uncharacteristically quiet. He watched Larry try to hit on a woman by explaining the torque of a 1,974 station wagon. He watched Chrissy try to explain the rules of tic-tac-toe to a very confused bartender. And he looked at Janet, who was radiant even in the dim light of the bar. Are you scared? Janet whispered, leaning into him. Terrified, Jack admitted. Not of being married to you. I'm terrified that I'll accidentally say I'm my own sister during the vows. If you do, I'll just say I'm the florist's assistant, and we'll start over. Mr. Furley stumbled over to their table, clutching a root beer. Tripper, wood. I've been thinking, marriage is like a lease. You've got your security deposit, your monthly maintenance, and if you make too much noise after 10 p.m., someone's going to complain. But if you find the right co-tenant, you never want the lease to end. It was the most profound thing Furley had ever said. Thanks, Ralph, Jack said, actually touched. Don't get mushy on me, Tripper. The truth tax is still in effect until the ceremony, Furley barked, before tripping over his own platform shoes and falling into a potted palm. Chapter 29. The Garter Belt Gambit. The morning of the wedding arrived with a Santa Monica fog that was thick enough to butter. Jack was in the kitchen, frantically trying to whisk a hollandaise sauce for a pre-wedding brunch he had insisted on cooking himself. Where is the cayenne? Who moved my cayenne? Uncle Leo used it, Chrissy said, emerging from the hallway, wearing a bridesmaid dress that was 3 shades of disorienting pink. He said his breakfast kipper needed more theatricality. Suddenly, Uncle Leo swept into the room, cape billowing. Jackson, I have just challenged your landlord to a duel of honor. He claimed his apricot leisure suit was more continental than my theater cape. I had no choice but to strike him with my glove. Uncle Leo, you aren't wearing gloves, Janet said, walking in. She looked breathtaking in ivory lace, though she was currently holding a rolling pin. I used a discarded sock. The point is, he has accepted. We meet at high noon, behind the used car lot. No duels, Jack shouted, his whisk flying into the air. I'm getting married at high noon, in a park, 5 miles away from the cars. Larry Dallas burst through the door, wearing a tuxedo that had Larry's Quality Autos embroidered on the pocket in gold thread. Kid, great news! The park was double booked by a troupe of mimes, so I moved the whole wedding back to the lot. We've got the big sail balloons up already. It looks like a carnival of commitment. Janet's eyes went wide. She looked at the rolling pin, then at Larry. Larry, if you don't call the mimes and get our park back, I'm going to use this rolling pin to redesign your talk. Chapter 30. The Vows of 201 Adobe Lane. The ceremony did not happen at the car lot. After a frantic bribe involving 3 dozen carnations and a voucher for a Romanian dinner, the mimes agreed to move their rehearsal to the beach. The park was beautiful. The scent of daisies, Janet's favorite, filled the air. Jack stood at the altar, his knees shaking so hard they made a rhythmic clicking sound against the wood. Mr. Furley, acting as the official master of ceremonies, under the threat of a rent strike, stood tall in a suit that could only be described as sunset orange. He opened a scroll that was 4 feet long. We are gathered here today, Furley began, his voice booming, to witness the permanent co-tenancy of Jack Tripper and Janet Wood. In the building of life, love is the foundation, trust is the elevator, and arguments are just noisy neighbors upstairs. Uncle Leo stood in the front row, sobbing loudly into a velvet napkin. And Chrissy, as the flower girl, had accidentally thrown entire heads of lettuce instead of petals because she wanted the ground to be crunchy. When the time came for the vows, Jack looked Janet in the eyes. The farce faded. The laughter in the crowd died down. "Janet," Jack whispered, his voice finally steady. "For 3 years, I've been everyone but myself, just to stay in the same room as you. I've worn wigs, I've lied to the FBI, and I've danced the Yum Yum song, but today, I realized that the only thing I ever really wanted to be was the man who gets to come home to you." Janet smiled, tears shimmering in her eyes. "Jack, I didn't fall in love with the refined roommate or the Swiss chef. I fell in love with the man who makes a pie when everything is falling apart. I promise to keep your secret, even if the only secret left is how much I love you." "I now pronounce you," Furley shouted, "husband and wife. No truth tax required." Chapter 31. The Company of Forever.